Get started. Welcome everyone to another month, another Spaces event. We're happy you joined us for this month's topic, how to build relationships in freelance work. We're excited to learn with all of you from Alberto. There's so many topics we can tackle with Alberto, but we want to focus on how to bond with clients and build up that network in freelancing. And it's such an important an element in a freelance career. Alberto Orsini has over 12 years of experience building and leading product teams that see millions of users across hospitality and entertainment industries. Alberto is currently a senior manager of product design, who throughout his career has learned that the most successful products are when users are listened to and considered. He's with us not just for his extensive experience with corporate companies, but his past experience and current experience as a freelancer, a consultant, and an entrepreneur. Alberto's mission is to build teams that elevate and innovate experiences that are thoughtful, engaging, with emotional designs and deliver optimal results. Alberto, thank you so much for being with us this month.
Thank you for having me.
So with this month's topic, let's get right into it. Relationship building. What does that mean for the success of a freelance career?
I think throughout my career, it's meant different things at different stages. And at the beginning, I didn't have my thoughts particularly formulated around this. You know, you're starting your career as a freelancer. In my case, as a designer. So I come from an artistic background, and I'm thinking that that's sort of how I'm going to approach design itself. And very quickly realized that sometimes, if not put in the right context, people may not necessarily care about design. Unless design has a tie-in to the business side. So I think for me, successful relationships in a freelance career today means really understanding and putting myself in the mindset of my client. I think, and we may touch on this a little bit more, looking at the questions. We'll probably touch on this a little bit more, but I think I see a lot of conversation out there, seeing freelancers versus clients. And one of my earliest meme accounts that I followed were clients from hell. And I think that's really the wrong approach. When we train ourselves to be against or in a competition against our client, it means that we're not really listening to them, because we're letting ourselves believe that we know better. And who knows better about their business than the business owner? So I think if we train ourselves to listen a little bit better, put ourselves in their shoes, learn their vocabulary, and understand what are the passions and motivations behind clients hiring us as a freelancer, we can offer much more of a partnership, as opposed to, this sort of like back and forth, like if we were playing Pong, and really become an augmentation to their team or to their business, and help them achieve what they're trying to achieve.
100%. I think you mentioned the key word, partnership, right? Like you as a freelancer, as an artist, you're coming in with the same leverage. You are a business in its own, on its own yourself. I think sometimes that's missed. So that's something that we've spoken to a lot about. Looking at your freelance career as a business, because it is at the end of the day. You're coming really with that same leverage to that business owner. Thinking about starting out in a freelance career, right? Newly freelance that's starting today. What's some pointers, like 3 pointers that you would give them on how they should start building relationships with new clients? How do you get started? How did you get started?
Yeah, I got started honestly by happenstance. I'd like to think or portray that maybe I've had my career fully planned out, but the fact of the matter is that I've led my career very much by curiosity. I started my freelance career because I needed a computer for college, and somebody was crazy enough to offer me $800 for creating their first landing page or website. And this is way back in the day. I was kind of like tinkering around with Flash and Dreamweaver. That wasn't even part of Adobe back then. It was Macromedia. So I'm really like dating myself here. But somebody gave me $800 to put together their website. It took me like 6 months. It was probably the most horrible website, like a violation of visual interest for everybody online. However, it bought me my first computer, allowed me to go to college and take my design career a lot more seriously and continue to play with on the fringes, right? Like outside of just design, I was learning HTML, CSS. Like I said, I was learning Flash and a little bit of animation, etc. And basically approaching. So I guess that would be tip number one is lead with curiosity. I think
Mhm.
there's people feel like they need to approach every single job with a level of expertise that is unparalleled, and that can be very daunting for especially for newcomers, feeling like they have to know everything. There's a lot of people that act like they know everything, but
Mhm.
there's nothing better than knowing enough about something. And I try to convince people to do this all the time: know enough about something to get paid for learning it fully. I'm
Mhm.
not saying defrauding anyone or anything like that. At the end of the day, you have to deliver. But
Yeah.
I think we can, you can read how to drive for months or years, but until
Mhm.
you sit behind the wheel, press the pedal, feel the weight of the car, how fast it goes, how hard do you have to press on the brakes to come to a full stop, until you do that on your
Mhm.
own, you truly don't know how to drive.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to be curious and be led by curiosity. Number two, be honest. So obviously, if you're just getting started, you're not gonna be necessarily charging the same prices as somebody that has been doing this, a true veteran in the field or anything like that. So don't undervalue yourself, but also, be realistic and be open, and build that relationship based on patience and the fact that you're a newcomer, but you're thirsty for knowledge. So when speaking to clients, obviously, if they have a deadline for next week or in the next 2 days or something like that, that's not necessarily going to be the most welcoming of jobs to start with. But when you approach your career, maybe you start with friends and family or friends and friends. You can open up by saying like, "Hey, I'm super interested in the topic. I'm interested in learning. If I can make a little bit of money along the way, I'll be happy to take this journey with you, since you have the time and the patience to, this is not something that you need for tomorrow." And I think number three goes back to my answer to the first question, and really building success. The most amount of success that I've had in my freelance career has been from past clients either giving me repeat work or
Mhm.
encouraging their friends and their connections to work with me. And I think that can only happen when you have a genuine interest in what they're trying to achieve, and undeniably you become the solution person in their brain. So that means that you have to be empathetic. You have to develop almost an obsession for your client's goals and make those goals your own. And in my case, I try to solve those through design and through a conversation about product and engineering and all of that. But I know my place, but I become obsessed with what they're trying to achieve, and those become personal goals of mine. So yeah, get in there, become part of the team, ask a lot of questions, understand where they're coming from, and don't be too precious about what you're creating. Sometimes we have to break things, we have to start over. Definitely make sure that you're getting paid for the process, but become obsessed with your client's goals, and I think you're gonna feel a lot of success, and success is gonna come your way as a result.
Awesome. And we hear a lot of stories from freelancers that that's how they get started, right? They take on work. They might charge a little less just for that, what you said, that curiosity or just that educational piece to kind of learn along the way. And I think when potential clients can see that hustle, right, in you, like this person's hungry, like you mentioned, you want to buy that laptop. I think a lot of people can relate to that, that they'll
Yeah.
start hustling and working towards something, whether it's a laptop, tuition, whatever it may be.
I think we're also obsessed with perfection, and we're so fearful. You know, you see it with people. They don't want to start their YouTube channel, for example. They don't want to Twitter Spaces. They're so afraid to turn the mic on and have a genuine conversation with another human, thinking, "Oh, I have to be perfect. I have to sound like the guy on the radio or the guy on the podcast." And the fact of the
100%.
matter is that this world is full of human. We all mess up. We all stumble around over our words and
Mhm.
whatnot. I think that thirst for knowledge and getting started and just figuring things out, it really carries people a long way if they're daring to get started to begin with. If you sit in your room and you become the best designer, the best writer, but nobody has any idea of what you're creating, or you're not really doing it for anyone and monetizing it, then unfortunately, you're gonna be, you're gonna be perfect, but no one is
Mhm.
gonna know it. I'd rather be imperfect and make money along the way and help a few people, right?
100%. Yeah. And now the world deserves to hear, right? Everyone's story, it's unique, and you never know who can relate and who you can collaborate with, right? So those are definitely great tips on how freelance can get started really in the career. I wanted to ask how you mentioned a lot about word of mouth, but could you elaborate more on like where do you typically meet your potential clients?
Yeah, again, this is something that has changed over the years. I believe today to be the easiest it's ever been to form
Okay.
relationships online. There's a number of places where you can, and Buzzy being one of them, right? Where you can
Shameless
connect.
plug. Thank you.
Yeah, super. I'm here for it. But being able to form those relationships digitally, which becomes a lot more important nowadays, that now more than ever, you can cross oceans. You can communicate instantly and have a conversation with somebody overseas, whether it's a freelancer or a potential client, etc. I had a short stint where I was living in Germany, and I was still working with US based clients. I had a moment in the past where I was doing a lot of freelance in South Florida and discovered that in
Mhm.
San Francisco, clients paid a lot more. And I kept thinking about my friends in Puerto Rico as well, being fully bilingual and having all this skill set. And I'm like, why are we
Mhm.
not working with the people that are paying the most? What's coming in between
100%.
us if everything that we're delivering is online and the communication happens over Zoom and whatnot. So again, I think in the past, I focused a lot on going to events. You'd be surprised to know that I'm mostly extroverted, but I have a thick layer of introversion, thick layer of ice. So for me, breaking that ice is incredibly difficult. So going to events always felt like I felt very depleted emotionally and just at a loss for energy. And it would typically go that I would smile a lot and try to talk to as many people as possible and quickly escape to my hotel room and just like turn on something like Unsolved Mysteries or something like that and kind of
Mhm.
like block the world out. But I don't feel that online. I feel like there's so many places to make relationships, and I think things like meetups, anything that you could do online, honestly, it's great. And
Mhm.
also, so that's you going out and seeking connections. But also, what about exposure, right? Before we used to accept a lot of work for in exchange for exposure, but now everybody
Mhm.
can get as much exposure as they want, at least as a visual designer, as a graphic designer, as a product designer, by posting your stuff on Instagram, on Dribble, etc. And guess what?
Mhm.
There's people on the other side looking for your talent. So they're going to be reaching out to you. Or at the very least, like let's say that we connect through your platform, you're going to have something to show instantly and develop that. The relationship is going to start with the right foot by you already being a subject matter expert in their eyes. So I think don't be afraid of exposure. Now it's free. It used to
Mhm.
cost a lot to get that type of exposure. Putting an ad on a magazine or the newspaper, and now you can just
Mhm.
do all of that almost instantly. So
100%. And for so long, clients got away with, "Hey, work with me. I'll give you exposure," right? where now we're in 2022. That's like a
Do
red
not work
flag.
for exposure.
Yeah.
If you work for $10, that's fine. I will never judge you. If you can wait for work for a little bit more, I encourage you to do so. You're more valuable than $10. Do not work for
100%.
exposure. A hundred,
Yeah.
like even you could be doing something for your dad. Do not do it for exposure. At least get a movie ticket out of it, something, but get something back.
Yeah, you need that self gratification. I think one of the worst things walking away from an interaction with a client, right, is that like buyer's remorse, like shit, I should have charged more, or
Exactly.
you know. You mentioned some great things, and I think the pandemic has really showed how the world has opened up. Right now, we can work cross borders, and I think you mentioned Puerto Rico. For so long, the narrative has been right. You have to leave the island, work in the States, and work locally, right, at somewhere. Now that's completely changed, and I think with Buzzzy, we're prime right now with being able to export and use the talent that we have in Puerto Rico to work with anyone really, because we are open to U.S., Puerto Rico, Latin America, whomever needs talent. So I thought
I
those are some great points.
I have comments about that actually, and it's unfortunate. Obviously, I come from Puerto Rico, and I felt it
Mhm,
too. Obviously, we have probably more than anyone in the world. We have access to the U.S. In a little,
mhm,
in a little bit of an easier fashion. You can just travel, and it's a local trip. You don't have to have any sort of special. You can move to any state, and you don't have to have any paperwork. Other than getting a
mhm,
new license. um but so that always felt easier in my head, and potentially when I took the plunge and moved over, that was true. The internet wasn't as mature as it is today, and it required that extra level of effort just to be closer to whatever it is that you're looking for. But I think those boundaries are completely erased today. Throughout my career, I've worked with so many freelancers, contractors, and even employees as full-time employees from Colombia, Argentina, Greece. I have one of my colleagues. She's living in Spain, and she is a designer part-time and a documentarian the other half of her
mhm.
time. And I think like
Whoa.
that is so amazing. The world is so tiny right now. And I think I say that because I want to give people the encouragement to say you're not forced to stay within your four walls. Your four walls
Mhm.
are invisible. Like you can definitely get out there, and the internet opens up so many possibilities. I'm talking about the internet like it's 1996, by the way. Like people don't know already. But I just from a professional perspective, I think honestly, like I'm so motivated by making money with my craft that I want to
Mhm,
push everyone and say, you can make money. You're probably making too little. Like
mhm.
expand your horizons and look, because there's plenty of opportunity out there.
100%. There's so many revenue streams, right, that someone can pursue. It's just a matter of starting it, right? Starting the YouTube channel, starting an Instagram account. Yeah, start freelancing as well if you're working a full-time job. I think for the first time, people have so much control over their time that it's our moment to take advantage. One note I do want to bring up, you mentioned speaking of cross borders, right, and just the online world, you mentioned like meetups and that pre-pandemic, and I'm sure that's coming back now. But I mean, we can't discount as well. Like there's Discords, there's Slack channels, Reddits, right? There where you can also interact and talk to others. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
and
think those
and
are
you
great
can open
channels
up
to
you can open
utilize.
up with value too. Because I think that's part of building meaningful relationships. It's
Mhm,
not just shaking a hand saying, hey, my name is Alberto, and I'm a designer. Oh, you have a need for design. Oh, let's talk. Let's go for coffee. That's fine. But the thing is, people are looking for answers out there. You go to
mhm.
places like Quora, for instance, where
Yep.
people are legitimately asking, how do I take the first step to do this? How do I create a landing page? How do I convert people with my copy? And honestly, you can be, without any sort of like self-interest in being like, hey, I could answer everything with, oh, go watch this video that I have on my YouTube channel, and
That's
like
awesome.
that's fine, but it's not gonna feel as genuine as taking the time to answer some questions, etc. And I think you have the opportunity to build really meaningful relationships that can sort of transform and crystallize into professional relationships as well. Again, I cannot stress the fact, I cannot stress enough the fact that the world is so tiny, and right now you can pretty much build relationships anywhere, from Instagram to places like Quora and forums if you're more old school, and
Mhm.
blogs and stuff like that. YouTube comments, that's a huge place to engage and see what people are asking for. Not only that, but you can collect ideas of like, man, I have this idea, I'm going to put together a case study on my website that answers just that, and I'm going to start
Mhm.
sending people there. Just things like that. I think you can collect ideas and start forming those relationships.
100%. Yeah, you mentioned it, adding value. If you can add value, then you've earned the right to ask someone to come to your website or to buy from you.
Yeah.
Um, so as we know, right, as you know, in your freelance career, clients are not the only place, right, where you can get work. It's also fellow freelancers, right? You might get a really big project. You might need someone to lend you a hand, or as the designer, I'm sure you've gotten clients asking you to also write the copy or also develop the website, and you're like, no, 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 I can find someone for you to work alongside, right? So when you're looking for that extra hand, what are some things that, what is like a criteria that you utilize to decide what freelancers you should connect with for a certain project?
It depends, of course, on the type of freelancer that I'm looking for. By the way, I'm hiring right now. I'll talk to you guys after that because maybe you can help me.
Of course.
Sometimes, and this happens all the time, right? Like I have an opportunity that came my way, and the proposal is a little bit bigger than something that I can handle on my own, and I need to look for it's usually very manual in terms of where I look, just because I'm typically looking for visual designers. So I'll start in a place like Dribble, for instance, and it's just like cold,
Well,
messaging people.
let's
Yeah.
I wanted to focus more on like the personality, on the type of person that you're going to look, like the qualities you're going to look for in that
So
freelancer.
the reason why I mentioned that is because I'm looking for passion and a constant refresh of their skill set, right? So
Mhm.
rather than something that is stagnant, and because I run through this also on the hiring side, more on the corporate side of things, where I'm interviewing candidates and everything. I see that their portfolio is really outdated, for example, or we had a conversation a few months ago, and now we have another conversation, and it's still sort of the same. Like I wanna when I interview people and when I talk to people, I definitely want to see the or feel the passion and their constant infatuation for reinventing themselves in terms of really learning the new trends, new portions of the craft. Does
That's
that, I don't
perfect.
know if that fully answered your
Yeah,
question,
no,
but
no, it does. And it aligns really a lot with what we look for in freelancers, just a willingness to learn, go above and beyond to
yeah.
the client.
Yeah, I think,
Um,
and obviously communication is important, and communication goes both
yeah.
ways. It's not necessarily how well versed they are in speaking necessarily, although that really helps. But I think being able to listen and capture the details. Again, I'll go back forever to my point number one, which is
Mhm.
that's the understanding the task at hand, and seeing how everything fits in. If you tell me to redo my landing page as a potential client, you don't necessarily want something more beautiful. More beautiful helps because there's a perception that
Mhm.
beautiful and well designed turns into value. You look at an iPhone, you're not looking for, you're not going to get cheap, creaky plastic anything, right? So
Mhm.
there's a perception of value, and when you pay the high ticket price, you understand why you're doing that. You're signing up for it, even if you're hating it a little bit, but you sort of like get used to it. And the same thing happens as a freelancer. You got to be able to listen and connect with those goals. I understand that my design can be beautiful, but the number one goal is to lead people to your website and convert them, right? Or
Mhm.
we're expanding the reach through paid advertising, and we need a place to receive all of that new traffic that
Mhm.
is premium traffic because we're paying for it. So I'm not a marketer, but I'm listening to the client, and I'm like, how can I, through design, how can I pair up with an excellent copywriter that is gonna, and this is where you're talking about, right, of
Mhm.
expanding, going horizontally and looking for other creatives to join the cause for a common goal. But that goal is not about me creating the most beautiful design and that copywriter writing the best copy of their life if it doesn't achieve the goal that the client has, and we have to pay attention to that.
100%. Yeah, it's good to know the full story, right? Not just say, just take their word for it, right? At the request, it's like, okay, why are you asking me to do this? It's really great
Exactly, because
to get the
sometimes they don't
full.
really know, and part of this is
That's
educating the
true.
person that's on the other side. They didn't go to
Yeah.
design school. They haven't been writing like you
Mhm.
for the past number of years. They don't know Facebook ad manager like you potentially do. So you got to take them in that journey and map it out in a way. You're the translation layer. How does that translate to achieving their goals? And that goal is heartfelt, and you're truly understanding it and putting your craft at work to achieve it.
100%. Your goal at the end, right, should be that they could walk away from at the end of that project and be able to defend, right, the work that you did, and speak to it. So you mentioned a little bit about feedback. So I want to talk a little bit about that because obviously receiving, giving feedback, it's a difficult situation all around. So when you're looking for receiving feedback, what's some advice you would give a creative on how they should manage feedback that they receive from a client?
So there's
Uh,
two things. I think they're setting the expectation, and this is where sometimes, at least as a creative, I feel that this is where I've evolved the most, of really breaking the process down into stages and translating it in a way where a client understand what sort of feedback is useful at what stage of the project. It's training wheels. Again, they maybe have never worked with a creative, or they've worked with somebody that doesn't necessarily organize the project like you do. But for example, if I'm tackling something from a visual design perspective, I say that week number one, for example, we're going to be mood boarding. We're going to be looking for inspiration, and the feedback there is to choose to make some stylistic choices that are going to become the North Star for the project, right? This is visually what's going to inform whatever we create after that. Then in week number two, we're going to be doing, let's say, low fidelity wireframes, which means that they're going to be scrappy, they're going to be, scribbly and whatnot. And the right feedback there will be organizing the information in a way that it makes sense and building like Lego blocks. Week number three, we're going to jump into high fidelity designs. And then you can be specific about, I'm not feeling, it feels like we have too much white space, right? And that's typically, we can fit more information here. And that's where you have to sort of like hand wave your way. And again, it's taking them in that journey of like, yeah, we can add a lot more content, but that means that we're adding distraction. We can be punchy and make what we have here work really, really hard, and elevate that narrative with beautiful visuals around it that it's going to really carry that message. And then you remind them of their own goal, because remember, what we're trying to do here is get people to fill out this form. So we have to do everything possible to sort of like encompass that information in an easy to consume package. If you go to the Apple store, I do this all the time, guys. If you go to the Apple store, you have two size phones, and you have a couple of different colors. So you have some choices to do in terms of the style, and you have to hold it in your hand and say, do I want the bigger screen or do I want the smaller screen? But other than that, for somebody that is non-technical, you can dive into the technical details forever. Somebody non-technical can walk away with an iPhone. So
mhm.
this is what we're trying to do with your project. And I use relevant information like that to really guide them through the process. And believe it or not, that's how you can really train. You're training yourself too. You're training yourself to give the right information at the right moment and provide enough guidance. When you receive non-relevant feedback, is probably part your fault too, for not guiding
Mm,
the process properly, not setting the stage and the expectations, and explaining to them this specific type of feedback is going to be really, really useful right now. And that type
mhm.
of feedback, maybe we could do it later, right? So um, yeah, it's 50% on you, and the other 50% on timing, not even the client themselves, because they may not know what's useful and
Mhm.
what's not, and what the insecurities that they're feeling along the way, and the reason why they're giving you the feedback. It may have nothing to do with the visuals or with the copy or with the rhythm of what you're doing, but maybe them feeling flaky about not achieving their goal, or forgetting a little bit, getting too emotional about the process and forgetting what their goal is to begin with. So that's your job to sort of like bring them back.
Yeah, I love how you put it. Just kind of bring them through your process, and along the way, invite kind of that feedback, right? Instead of waiting, I guess, till the very end, and always bringing them back to their goal, right? Because you can always kind of put it back on them and say, hey, did something change? Because this is what I understood, and this is what we agreed on from the very start, and kind of reminding them along
I
the way.
truly believe this. If you end a relationship with a client, right, you handed everything off, that client is so much better
Mhm.
off after their relationship with you. Let's say they never hire you again, and next time they hire another person, that client is going to feel empowered because they understand the process. They understand how to provide proper feedback. So again, it's part of your legacy, and part of what you have to offer as a freelancer, which may go beyond the actual deliverables. It's how you treat that relationship. And I guarantee you that leads to a lot more sales and longer relationships with clients, because you are bringing them in for the ride. I think one of the big mistakes that we make, especially at the beginning, is closing everybody off because they don't
Mhm.
understand. Oh, I went to design school, they didn't go to design school, so they don't understand my process, they don't understand my craft. And that's pretty arrogant, I'm not gonna lie. And what
Mhm.
that's gonna do is close a lot of doors for you instead of opening new ones.
100%. Yeah, it comes down to just being empathetic to the client that you have in front of you and educating them, right? That goes such a long way. Like you mentioned, you make an impact really on their whole trajectory after you. And who knows, that could be a difference why they keep hiring you, right? As a freelancer over anyone else.
Yeah, yeah. The way to level up is also observing, how can I be better all the time? How can I bring them in a better way? How can I
Mhm.
write a better email? What sort of vocabulary are they using that I'm not? And I can keep, mimicking that so that they understand that I'm in it with them. And I think, as a freelancer, that's going to make you so much better. Again, at the end of every job, you should be 1% better. They should be 10% better. Let's put it that way, right?
100%.
Like
Yeah.
everybody wins something when they go into a freelance relationship like that.
Awesome. I love that. We are out of time, but I did want to end on one last question. And you can totally throw yourself in this bucket. Who are people we should be following, that you follow?
You
And
should be
really
following
just
me. No, I'm joking.
yeah, it's basically sources of inspiration that others can take, to build up their freelance journey and their personal brand.
So I think, I'm very, very focused on design. So maybe this is not relevant to everyone, but if you're in the creative business in general, I think Chris Doe, and the future, you should definitely give them a follow, and that'll give you a really great understanding on how to position yourself in a market of freelance, how to establish your price point. I think there's so much encouragement for us to, again, and you mentioned this, Antonio. I cannot even say it better. This is a business. The reason why you're a
Mhm.
freelancer is not because you have a passion. That may be the reason why you paint with oils and watercolor, right? And it may be, or
Mhm.
develop, not that there's not people who do this professionally, right? But that's the reason why you learn other software, because you're passionate about it and you sort of want to learn it on the side. But if you're a freelancer, whether full-time or part-time, you're there to build a business, to build your
Mhm.
brand, to build yourself, to build your peers around you, and that is a transactional that is a transactional relationship with the people. So enrich yourself in business talk. And again, I go back to Chris though, because I feel like a lot of that understanding came recently from me following him and his crew, and sort of the conversations that they bring to the table, which is very refreshing for a designer to be comfortable to talk about money, because that's the hardest conversation. I bought a book many years ago, and I've been gifting it to people. It's called The Creative Professional's Guide to Money. And definitely that's something that, even though it was written such a long time ago, I think it's very relevant, again, to understand the math of what you bring to the table and why you should be charging what you're charging. But also, a freelancer is typically a solopreneur, which means that you're trying to figure out taxes into your prices. You're trying to, there's a lot that you're trying to figure out. So definitely, check out that book if you're interested. Yeah, that I think that's what I would say.
Awesome. And of course, yourself, right? They should be following you.
Oh yeah, Alberto Orsini on Instagram and YouTube. So if you're interested in design, on YouTube, sort of doing little videos and tutorials and whatnot. I sell myself super short, but it's a passion of mine. So this is more of a hobby, but I've been doing it for the past 3 years, and I'm enjoying a lot, and I want to make more time for it. But yeah, and I'm active on Instagram if you want to have a conversation. If you want some mentoring, fluxhours.com. Also, you can go there and book some time with me or any number of other mentors, depending if you want to have mentoring sessions about resume, career, next steps, and redefining yourself as a creative. That's the right place to go to.
Awesome. Alberto, this has been great. Thank you for your time. There's a lot of gems in this one. So we'll definitely be sharing this with you to use as well for your own channels.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And
Awesome.
I hope
Thank you everyone for connecting with
we
us.
connect again.
Awesome. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again next month.